You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 194. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where we talk about what really happens when you take a break from drinking. And it turns out to be the best thing you've ever done. I'm Anna, coach to high achievers who are done waking up with regret and ready to feel in control around alcohol. If you've ever wondered what your life could look like with less wine and more you, you're in the right place. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you've all had a great start to the week and a good weekend. My weekend or my week last week was actually in the evenings quite dominated by the Saudi Arabia Masters Snooker Championship. Any regular listeners will know I'm into my snooker, and it was the most phenomenal final. There were 2 frames where the player scored the maximum number of points, 147. It's one break, so from start to finish, basically the player pots all the balls in the correct order and gets the maximum score. And if you watch championships like I do, you maybe see one of these. Maybe there's normally a couple per championship, but unless you watch all the matches, you're not going to see them all the time. But there were two in one match. I think it was a total of about 17 frames, something like that. Amazing. So exciting. And it just shows you, right? So if somebody had said, what's the likelihood of that happening? They'd probably say pretty low. In fact, there's probably someone out there with all the stats on it. And yet it was totally possible. What a great way to start the podcast. I tell this all the time to my clients. Even if you are drinking a bottle of wine a day or 2 bottles of wine a day or whatever you're struggling with, I know sometimes when I speak to people, I may as well be telling them, yeah, it's possible for you to change this, like it's possible for you to get into a spaceship and go to the moon. It can feel that impossible. I know it felt that impossible for me, but it is not. If Ronnie O'Sullivan can get 2 147 frames in one snooker match, you can change your relationship with alcohol, right? Because I am here. I help successful people like you feel in control of alcohol, drink less, and make it irrelevant. So it is no longer a decision that takes up space in your mind. So good. Okay, so last week we talked about regret, and specifically about regret for not starting this work sooner, right? In the way that you can look back and say, oh, if only I had done this years ago. If only I had done this years ago, things would be so different now, and how we cycle through that. Well, this week I want to zoom in, and it's actually kind of on another kind of regret, and it is the kind that shows up usually the morning after, but it actually can be at any time, when you say something to yourself like, why do I do this to myself? Oof, this is a heavy one. Why do I do this to myself? Or why do I keep doing this to myself? Any sort of combination of that kind of thing. Now, on the surface, this kind of tough talk sounds logical. Of course, you would ask yourself why you keep drinking more than you're meant to or than you want to, right? Especially when you're feeling frustrated or disappointed in yourself. That kind of makes sense. That's how we were taught to ourselves. But here's the thing, and this really is the nub of the matter. This question is not helping you. Take it from me. You may want to fight me on this. And if you're new to my world, I just want you to maybe say, I'm just going to trust you, Anna. I'm just going to take it as read. Right? This question is not helping you. It feels like self-reflection, right? Because you're talking about yourself and how you see yourself, but it's really a form of self-sabotage. It's disguised as curiosity, but it is actually a way of beating yourself up, which is one of the number one things you need to eradicate, completely eradicate, to successfully have a brand new relationship with alcohol where it's an irrelevance in your life, right? And this is actually one of the top 2 protocols I suggest and offer to my clients when they first start working with me, that we just stop the beat up thing. Just doesn't get us anywhere, right? So let's go back to this, why do I do this to myself? Where this shows up, I want you to keep in mind, actually, this can look and show up in a lot of different ways, right? In a lot of different times. Maybe you were taking a break from the booze and you promised yourself you wouldn't drink, and then you did. Or maybe you had a plan for the night, and if you want a great planning app, go to the Off Switch with coaching included. Yes, go and check it out. And the coaching, by the way, in the app is free. For now, keep doing all these segues. Yes, I'm going to be charging for that at some point, but it is free for now with Anna inside. Anyhow, back to the top of the stack. How this shows up. Why do I do this to myself? Maybe you had a plan for the night and it just completely unraveled. Or maybe you didn't plan at all, but you still woke up thinking, I didn't want to do that, so why did I? Right? It's kind of a rhetorical question that we ask ourselves. Now, the outcome is the same. You're going to feel regret. You start interrogating yourself. And instead of moving forward, you get stuck replaying that same mistake. Now, why beating yourself up feels harmless but isn't? I do want to tackle this one. Because most people, a lot of people, I should say, may shrug this off. Oh, yeah, I beat myself up on this. I mean, like everyone does. Right? And maybe if you've been on some of the message boards, you see this happening, right? This could be something that is just socialized, or maybe you go out with your friends and say, I'm drinking again too much. I really shouldn't do this. And everyone says, oh, yeah, me too. And kind of like, you get kind of community in misery. That's that phrase, misery loves company. But people, you're listening to the Anna Charles 90 Days Later podcast. We are a breed apart. We are taking action here. Saying and beating yourself up is not harmless. It is a big deal. It is a big deal because what you are telling yourself becomes the emotion you live in, right? You take that on as part of your identity, it's something you need. And thoughts like, I'm so stupid, I'm hopeless, I'll never figure this out, they all sort of come along in its wake. And these thoughts do not create motivation. They do not create motivation. They create shame, frustration, and discouragement. And this is what's happening. This is the way our brains are programmed. We think negative thoughts, we feel negative emotions, and we take negative action. We take action that doesn't serve us. And when we do that, the result is we stay stuck. Now, there are two typical responses that I see when you're stuck in this loop, and I'm going to call it the shame loop, right? Because we're kind of beating ourselves up. You'll usually do one of two things. This is what I typically see. You will hide and hold back, right? Convinced you're going to mess up again, so you're not even going to try. Or you will overcompensate by chasing perfection, right? You're trying to prove to yourself, I can do this. But in order to prove that, you're expecting unnecessarily high standards of yourself, right? You're expecting flawless control. The moment I decide to do this, I am going to do this. And this is something I see a lot with my clients because I work with people who are very successful, have their lives together. And by the way, when I say successful, I don't necessarily mean you're the CEO of a company. You may be running your family. You may be brilliant at your job, right? Even if your job is not top of the stack. This is not about wealth and money. This is about how you see yourself. Now, when you do these two things, when you hide and hold back or you overcompensate, neither of these creates freedom. And that is what we want, right? We want freedom around alcohol. Both of these things just keep alcohol in the driver's seat. Now, why we think our brain thinks criticism will help. Here is the twist, really. Part of your brain actually does believe that beating yourself up is useful. You will think it, quote, teaches you a lesson, or you will think it's going to stop you from repeating the same old mistakes. Maybe you've even used this strategy when you were at school or throughout your career or managing everything at home. Right? This is a solid strategy. I'm just going to get that stuff done. I'm going to teach myself a lesson. I'm going to be strong. But with drinking, it really doesn't work. If being harsh on yourself actually worked, you wouldn't still be struggling, right? And there is an important distinction here. There is nothing wrong with holding yourself to high standards, but that is very different from cracking the whip with demeaning and undermining language. One sounds like this. It sounds like, you can do this. I've got you. But the other sounds like this. Do this or else, or you're worthless if you don't. So what really happens after a night or a lunchtime or a day or a week, whatever, where it didn't go how you wanted, right? Where you may default to, why do I do this to myself? You're going to usually fall into one of three patterns that I typically see. At first, as we go, this really is into criticism mode, right? There's harsh judgment, there's shame and self-blame. This is what we're talking about. But you may have two other reactions. Even if you're asking this, you might sort of go into coddling mode, which is where you brush it off. You kind of write it away. You pretend it isn't a problem. You might say, why do I do this to myself? But then say, well, it's because of that. It's because, it was too hard for you and you can't do this, and don't expect too much of yourself. That is not self-love. I call that self-coddling, right? You're trying to feel good about something that you really don't want to feel good about. The other way you can go, this is the way I want you to go, is through supportive curiosity, acknowledging what happened, asking questions, and learning from it. Because criticism keeps you stuck, absolutely stuck in the mud. I mean, I want you to really think that you're in one of those, remember those old Tarzan films where they get into the quicksand and they be there, stuck in it. That's what criticism does to you. Coddling avoids growth. It just really keeps you where you're still stuck, but maybe you're trying to feel a bit better about being stuck. And it's all pretend feeling better. It's polyperfect feeling better. It won't help. Whereas curiosity is really the middle ground. It's supportive but not dismissive. It is compassionate but still accountable. So this is really why I want you to replace the false question. It is a false question. It is a dead-end question. Why do I do this to myself? With genuine curiosity. And I don't mean forcing yourself to just love yourself, right? For most people, that's just too big a leap. That isn't even coddling, right? Because you just really love yourself and accept it. That might be too big a leap. Because when your brain is used to calling yourself a failure, jumping straight to, I love myself unconditionally, is going to feel fake and unbelievable. It won't resonate in your body and you'll ditch it at the first opportunity. Right, so as I said earlier, I really want to be clear here. Supportive self-talk is different from self-coddling. Supportive self-talk sounds like, okay, that didn't go as planned, but I can learn and do something again. Helps you move forward. Whereas self-coddling is really just brushing it off, excusing the behavior, letting yourself off the hook, avoiding action, which doesn't create change. So curiosity is the way to go. Curiosity is the bridge. It is the bridge from where you are to where you want to be, always. It is supportive without being dismissive and keeps you accountable, but not in a kind of nasty, cruel way. And it is basically, and this is the main reason why I love curiosity, it is much more believable, right? You can believe that I could learn rather than, okay, I just need to expect and think that I've done this already. So instead of that question, why do I do this to myself? I want you to ask questions like, what was happening before I poured that drink? What emotion was I trying to take the edge off? What did the craving actually feel like in my body? Did I resist it, or did I just kind of follow it automatically? What patterns do I see when I look back? Curiosity will turn a night you regret into information you can actually use next time. And as I say to my clients, if you are a daily drinker, every single day you wake up, you get a new opportunity to try something out, right? Even tiny little changes to see if they stick for you. And here is a tip. You could actually take this approach. You don't have to wait for the next day. You could notice it in small daily moments. I want you to think about it. I want you to consider how you go about talking to yourself in your day-to-day life versus drinking. I want you to think, what happens if you forget your keys or stub your toe, right? You might be annoyed, but you're not really, are you going to think, oh, I'm such an idiot, I'm always doing this, right? Or do you not? This is interesting. How do you talk to yourself? Your relationship with self is very, very at the base of this. If you do not say, I'm such an idiot, when you stub your toe, why are you choosing to say that if you have one drink too many, right? Because every time you practice swapping judgment for curiosity, you're going to build that muscle, and you're going to need that. The bigger the drinking decisions you make, right? The further you get into the work, the further you start to see that you actually can do this, there's a whole other array of concerns and fears that tend to bubble up. You don't have to worry about that right now. Just start by seeing how you talk to yourself. Right, so the next time you hear yourself, this is your homework piece, you hear yourself asking, why do I do this to myself? I want you to pause. Just pause. Count 5. Start noticing it. That's the first thing, right? Just to notice it. I want you to recognize it is not a real question. It is a dead end question that goes nowhere. And that you really have got 3 options in that moment. You can criticize yourself. You can kind of pile on the shame and judgment. And remember that quicksand, right? You're just going to make yourself stay stuck in that quicksand. You could coddle yourself, which is kind of like brushing it off. You could excuse your behavior. Give yourself some half-decent excuse where you could maybe, if you squint at it, you could believe, which is just going to help you stay in that quicksand, but maybe you'll pretend you're feeling a bit better and certainly avoids growth. Or are you going to go to supportive curiosity and ask, what can I learn from this? Right? What was really going on for me? You could even ask, why am I asking myself this question again? Why do I do this to myself? Right? Only this third option will move you forward. That will keep you compassionate and accountable. I want you to think of it this way. Regret can either trap you in shame or point you towards growth. Last week we looked at regret about not starting sooner. This week we've looked at regret that shows up after drinking more than you meant, or if you're really kind of in this, I just feel stuck in this hamster loop. In both cases, the same principle applies. Regret does not have to weigh you down. It can be the signpost that points you to curiosity, awareness, and your next step forward to your next mini success. Now, if this is landing for you, if you listen to this and you want to learn how to apply these tools in your life, right, there is a huge difference between learning and implementing, between learning and applying. Right, you could sit here every week and listen to my podcast and nod along and say, that's me, that sounds good. And then the minute it finishes, go right back to your life. But if you want help implementing and applying, you want me to teach you accountability to yourself. This is the work I do with my clients every day. Together, we build the skills. You build the skills with me so that alcohol becomes a quiet, easy choice, not a constant fight. I do not tell you what to do in terms of how much to drink or not, right? This is about creating your new identity around this. If you would like to explore this for yourself, book a free discovery call with me. There is no strings attached. I do not work with everybody who applies to work with me. I need to check we're a good fit. We're going to talk about where you are now, where you want to be, and exactly how to get you there. If you go to 90dayslater.co, there is a book a call button on that website, or I will include the link in the show notes. Okay, that's it for this week. I will see you next time. If this episode hit home and you're ready to explore what life could look like with alcohol in the backseat, let's talk. I work with people one-on-one who are ready to create the relationship with alcohol that works for them, so they feel powerful in their choices and at peace with their habits. Go to 90dayslater.co and click on book a call, or grab one of the free guides in the show notes to this episode. And if this podcast is helping you, a rating or review goes a long way to help others find this work too.